War. War never changes.
Some kind of war junkie?
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the War 102 podcast, where we explore the doctrine, theory, philosophy, and history of warfare. I'm your guide, Paul Darling, and I want to share what I learned in nearly 30 years in uniform. So let's get to learning about the most influential activity in human history, war. Welcome to episode 65, Updates in Modern War. I was all set to talk about Attila the Hun, and I promised to get there. But with news that elephants are back in the warfighting business, I couldn't resist. First, some podcast updates. Returning back to the start, my intent was for 1 year. I had about a year's worth of stuff that I wanted to talk about that I felt would be a good primer. So I'm winging it from here. For newer listeners, and maybe there's a dozen of you, I invite you to go back and listen to the podcast from the beginning. My podcasts assume you have the foundations I built in the first few episodes. For everyone else, this is not Fight Club. Please talk about the podcast and use any social media you may enjoy to spread the word. I am deeply appreciative of all the listeners I currently have, but I admit there's been very little growth recently. Maybe it doesn't deserve it, but I'm asking for some help. Thanks. Moving on. For those who may have missed it, a border conflict has flared up between Cambodia and Thailand. There are innumerable friction points between the two nations, with some dating back thousands of years. Both represent the heart of ancient empires, the Thai, previously referred to as Siam, and the Khmer, who ethnically represent 95% of Cambodia. In what will come as a shock to no one, the current borders are, while not exactly arbitrary, developed by the French with but scant concerns for the demographic realities of the people who live there. So while Cambodia, referred to as Kampuchea by the Cambodian people, who refer to themselves as the Khmer, please note Cambodia is a European term for the region, but dating back to the 14th century. While Cambodia is ethnically very monolithic, Thailand is very diverse, with Lao in the north, fittingly bordering Laos, and Khmer in the southeast, bordering Cambodia. The current borders date to 1910, with a treaty between the Kingdom of Siam and the French. All that being said, politics in Thailand is an absolute mess, with coups and counter-coups occurring about every 10 years, the latest in 2014, which might be cause for concern right now. The multicultural reality of Thailand's population leads to an inherent instability magnified by both rural and urban divide, as well as the Thai-non-Thai divide, which both contribute to a large gap in incomes between the two. Furthermore, as Laos and Cambodia are far poorer on average than Thailand, and sharing porous borders, influxes of minorities can upset the balance. These are the demographic realities that unquestionably provide the foundational weakness of Thailand. Then there are the political realities. Unlike Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, all of which were part of French Indochina, Thailand remained politically independent, though dependent upon Western support. It served as an anti-communist strongpoint as the former French colonies all fell to communist insurrections. It is fascinating to note the derision to which the domino theory is held, despite the absolute and unquestionable fact of its existence as the primary communist grand strategy globally. In much the same way that people will forgive you for being wrong far more easily than for being right, lies will never be attacked with the same vehemence that the truth will be attacked. Ancient empires and arbitrary borders aside, modern friction between Cambodia and Thailand is rooted in the still de facto communist government in Cambodia. Much like the Zanla and Zipra conflict in Zimbabwe between Chinese communist-supported guerrillas and Russian-supported communist guerrillas, Cambodia was racked by competing ideologies until the leading regime consolidated control. Despite describing itself in non-communist terms, it still rules in a manner similar to the Kim family in North Korea. The current ruler of Cambodia, Hun Sen, is positioning his son to finally take over. Hun Sen has been a fixture in Cambodian politics since the rise of Khmer Rouge, in which he served as a senior officer before defecting and fighting with the Vietnamese army, which eventually overthrew Pol Pot's government. Hun Sen, despite serving in a variety of roles, has served as the de facto dictator of Cambodia since 1985. With complete control of the government and media, he enjoys high popularity, and the installation of his son as his replacement seems guaranteed. The reason I bring this up is that 3 of his sons serve as senior members of the Cambodian military. Some have surmised that the current conflict was instigated by Hun Sen as an attempt to solidify the legitimacy of his son's claim to succeed his father. However, I discount this theory because I believe it unnecessary. I do accept the philosophical legitimacy of Cambodia's claim to the disputed territory. The temples being debated and fought over are unquestionably part of Khmer history. The territory is filled with ethnic Khmers. But despite this empathetic position, there comes a point where we have to accept current international boundaries as a requirement for peace returning to the Westphalian nation-state and original UN Charter. However, as noted, since the end of the Cold War, this international consensus has been torn up from Africa to Indonesia to the Balkans and Eastern Europe and currently in Israel. And having destroyed the international order in the early 90s, it appears to be exceedingly difficult to put it back together, and too many countries are disinterested in maintaining current borders. With the newness of the current conflict, discerning truth from fiction is exceedingly difficult. I'll do my best. The region in question has been a source of small-scale fighting for decades, but the most recent battles appear to have started when a Thai infantryman stepped on a landmine while patrolling the Thai side of the border. This is not an inherently provocative act, as landmines are rife throughout the region dating to the 50s. What I don't know is how commonly the Thais use that particular trail. If it was a highly trafficked area, then a surprise landmine would lend you to believe that this was a new addition. Apparently, the Thais were distrustful enough to send engineers to search the rest of the trail, where they found additional Russian-made PMN-2 mines. While originally made in the 1970s, they are a recent export and therefore not legacy mines. The fact that multiple were located also indicates that this was a deliberate and recent mining operation designed explicitly to target Thai soldiers. With that, a series of small arms and artillery duels have commenced. Neither parties appear interested in a significant cross-border excursion. Rather, the exchanges are apparently an exchange of tit-for-tat attacks, neither side wishing to show weaknesses, but likewise unwilling to escalate beyond the fighting which has admittedly killed a couple dozen civilians and soldiers. Videos of the current fighting are flooding the internet, and it was with no small amount of amusement that I saw an obviously ceremonial war elephant in camouflage with an M16 strapped to his side. Artillery is being used, and it appears the Cambodians are hitting more civilian areas, but that might be a result of the geography and where cities are located. As the disputed areas are all in Thailand now, this seems counterproductive. Ethnic Khmers are hitting ethnic Khmers. The difference in equipment and discipline between the two armies is likewise stark. The Thai army, with far more modern and Western arms, and the Cambodians, armed with Vietnam-era M16A1s and Russian heavier equipment. The U.S. has a long-standing military relationship with the Thais. Covert Gold is a regular exercise held with the U.S. and Thai armies. This well over 50-year relationship is showing. On the contrary, the Cambodian military has far less uniformity and, it would appear, discipline. Nothing I have seen so far indicates either side is interested in changing the status quo via military means. So what is happening? First, let me state my professional opinion up front on the start of the conflict. Cambodia initiated hostilities directly. The deliberate mining of the Thai side of the border was a military attack, albeit a subdued one. The Cambodians are responsible for that. So while we can question how the Thais respond, we must assume, based on available evidence, that Cambodia initiated the conflict. So we have to ask why. There are a couple of theories. The use of artillery and landmines, the former liberally applied to civilian targets, might indicate that the Cambodians are attempting a Hamas-style harassment against the civilian population in Thailand to get them to evacuate, leaving less motivation for the Thai government to maintain the border. The fact that this civilian population is Khmer notwithstanding, while Thailand isn't an especially prosperous country, Cambodia is far less so. The Khmers and Laotians living in Thailand enjoy a higher quality of life and income than their bordering brethren. They are showing no inherent nationalistic desire to abandon their current country to reunite with their poorer cousins. Already, tens of thousands of civilians have had to evacuate, and nearly all of the 30 or so casualties so far have been civilian. While having a low probability of success, there is some logic to the strategy, and I can't discount it out of hand. I suspect, however, that the actual motivation is due to Donald Trump and his tariffs. Cambodia is almost entirely dependent upon the United States for external funding. Despite retaining nearly all aspects of the communist government, except a name, explicitly calling it as such, they have learned from China that you can trade with the U.S., remain a communist nation, and still profit, especially those of the ruling family. North Korea, take note. Trump has noted this near 100% trade imbalance and is attempting to correct it. As noted in earlier episodes, Trump values greatly his brand of peacemaker. I believe Cambodia initiated the conflict to get a better deal from Trump. And by initiating the conflict, no longer is this a simple trade negotiation, but rather yet another opportunity for Trump to prove his peacemaking abilities with Cambodia. Cambodia, of course, claiming to be the aggrieved party, and they are demanding a better deal to get them to abandon their claimed self-defense against Thai aggression. Hamas is attempting the same judo trick. Despite initiating the current hostilities with the attack on October 7th, Hamas has successfully portrayed themselves as the victims of Israeli aggression to the majority of the world. Cambodia is attempting to mimic this political messaging strategy. It may yet work. The tactics involved and the claims of Cambodia make little sense outside this construct, and the timing itself is unmistakable. With this theory established, I believe the fighting will remain relatively subdued, minus some unexpected, disproportionate provocations on either side, and, once a trade deal is established, the fighting will end as quickly as it started. While some might balk at the idea that Cambodia would kill and allow their own soldiers to be killed for a better trade deal, this is the reality of the world and certainly of dynastic communist governments. Otherwise, Cambodia has not the means to militarily adjust the current borders, nor does Thailand have the desire to acquiesce to such an adjustment on so scant a military threat. Nor should they, as a sovereign nation, lest they entice Laos to replicate these actions. And here's a good place to remind everyone of that fascinating trinity of Clausewitz: passion, chance, and cold rationality. Perhaps I am looking a bit too hard at the cold rationality aspect. I don't discount the nationalistic fervor with which the unquestioned champions of the Khmer, Cambodia, wishes to unite its political borders with its demographic borders, regardless of the desire of the residents. I just don't think they can under current conditions. They may simply be on a failed attempt for no other reason that they feel they should. And my hyper-rationalistic explanation is simply tied to the timing, and that alone may be pure chance. Who knows? Only the dictator of Cambodia, and he will never tell.
Thanks for listening today. If you want to help the show, please share today's episode on any social media sites you can. Check out the War 102 Buzzsprout website for more information and to send me a message. And, of course, my thanks to the subscribers who help keep the show going. Hope you all join me next week. See you soon.